Hi, I'm Gabriel and this is Learning English Path. And in this lesson, I'm going to teach you why you should stop trying to sound like a native English speaker. There's a big difference between accurate pronunciation like a native speaker and having an accent like a native speaker. All right. You want the first one, right? You want to make sure that you are using accurate and clear pronunciation, but there is no reason for you to develop an American accent or a British accent in order to speak English. You don't need to lose your beautiful natural voice. You don't need to lose your accent. All right? A lot of English learners think that in order to sound fluent, that they need to develop a British accent or an American accent. It's funny. It's very, very rarely an Australian accent that they want. It's very rarely a Scottish accent, very rarely an Irish accent, very rarely a Canadian accent, very rarely a South African or a New Zealand accent. Okay, it's usually an English accent or an American accent, which is something, I suppose, that comes from their English teachers telling them that they should sound like this. But what happens is that you have confused the idea of pronunciation and accent and made them the same thing. They're not the same thing. We all have accents, and you don't want to lose your natural voice. Your voice will change anyway. In fact, it is very possible, probable, in fact, that if you move to the USA or you move to the UK, that you will develop an accent naturally. But that doesn't have to be a goal. That doesn't have to be an aim, right? In fact, everyone within England, if it's an English accent you want, or everyone within the USA sounds a little different anyway. So who are you trying to sound like? Are you trying to sound like exactly like a certain individual? Are you trying to sound exactly like Donald Trump? Exactly like Boris Johnson, right? You don't need to sound exactly like a certain individual. And your accent gives you personality, because we each have personality and we each have our own accent and our own verbal tone. And you should focus on your emphasis, right? Your prosody. And I have a whole lesson on prosody, prosody. But it doesn't mean that your accent should be a certain way. As long as they understand you, as long as people understand you, that's all that's required. And, there are so many variations of the spoken English language now that you will get. If you come to the UK, you will see people with Indian backgrounds, Pakistani backgrounds, Japanese backgrounds, Chinese backgrounds, African backgrounds, Jamaican backgrounds, Brazilian backgrounds, Italian backgrounds, French backgrounds, Russian backgrounds, American backgrounds in England, right? And all together. And the English language is changing based on the mixed communication, and the accent is also changing based on this merging of accents together. And it reminds me of something funny that happens on a regular basis these days. In different countries, they have their own kind of versions of English. In India, for example, I think people even say Hinglish. And in China, the English language spoken in China is sometimes referred to as Chinglish. And there are other kinds there are other varieties of this all throughout the world. And I heard something that happens quite often, and I've seen this happen, is that you'll get two people from two different non-native speaking countries, non-native English speaking countries. So you get a woman from Russia and a man from India talking English together, and they are both coming at the English language from an English learner from a place of having learned English, right? And they will be communicating with each other fine in their intermediate level English, and it's enough for them. They don't speak the same first language, but together they can communicate in this second language of English. And then an American will come into the conversation, and they won't understand what the American is saying, even though the American has learned English as his or her first language. They were communicating with each other better, even though English was their second language. But now the American has come in speaking with this different accent and too quickly maybe, and they don't understand what he's saying. And this is a common phenomenon. Now, who in that situation, who is speaking the right kind of English? Interesting question, isn't it? Who is speaking the right kind of English when the Russian and the Indian are understanding each other when they're speaking English as their second language, but they can't understand the American who is speaking English as his first language? I'll leave you to ponder that, but this shows you that accent, there's no correct accent. An accent is not correct or incorrect. An accent is your personal voice, all right? Focus on pronunciation. Don't focus on accent. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And make sure you click that bell so that you know when I publish a new free lesson here on YouTube. And if you want to learn English with songs, then don't forget to click the link in the description to get my free PDF guide to 101 songs to learn English. I have hundreds of exercises for you to study English, English grammar, English vocabulary, English idioms, practice your English listening, and even your speaking while listening to the very best songs to study English with. All right. And when you get it, then you also get my weekly email with 5 words of the week, where I teach you another 5 words every single week so that you continue to take your English language learning to that next level. All right, my friend, I'm Gabriel Wallace. Keep learning and keep going.